Sheesh. Yeah, big time. No man. Diamonds in my teeth. I got a lot of shine.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. It's been a bit, but we're back. This is DFS Army's pre-lock show where we're here to talk through this 8-game slate. I'll show you all what I'm doing in the domination station. Guys I like, guys I don't like as much. Interesting slate, good amount of injury news, and yeah, we're going to get to it. And like I said, good to see you guys. It's been a while, but Fridays are always going to be consistent. Hopefully soon we can have a few more shows during the week before the end of the season, but we'll see what we get to. Let's jump right into it. We'll start off with the Cavs going up against the Hornets. This is an ugly game. We have a 16-point spread. High total, but it's gross. The Cavs are pretty healthy here. Nothing really standing out. The matchup against the Hornets is great for all of these guys. I mean, if I was trying to think of a guy to look at, I would consider Jared Allen or Evan Mobley, but we'll get to it. There's a lot of really good value at the power forward and center position. And if you're not playing the value guys, there's a fantastic pay-up option in Jokic and a low-owned guy that I'll talk about later on the show. There's another low-owned stud who's at the center position that I like a lot too. So I can't really find a reason to play Allen and Mobley in a game that I can't really say staying too close, but I understand the ownership on them in a really good matchup. I usually don't play for blowouts, but on this slate, I just can't stomach it. So none of the Cavs are showing up for me on this slate. You got to pick and choose your battles. There's some viable spots here, but I can't play everybody. What's up, Cedric, Don Juan? Good to see y'all. For the Hornets, they're a little bit more interesting. The Cavs are a team I don't like to pick on. The sim model had a little bit of interest in Miles Bridges, and so I put a like on him. He's still not showing up for me at all just because of all of the significantly much better plays we have on the slate. So I still kept that like just in case he did show up a little bit, but it's not doing anything. So that's okay. I never really forgot about that if I don't personally like the player too much in that spot. So we'll survive without Bridges tonight and be okay. Nurkic is one of the low or value center plays on this slate. We saw him, let me see. How many minutes did you see last time out? His minutes have been a little bit all over the place. He only saw 11 minutes last game against the Timberwolves 2 nights ago. He saw 14 minutes on the 3rd against the Warriors, but he's had 26 minutes against Sacramento on the 24th. We're expecting him to see more minutes in this spot. The projections have been pretty spot on with when Nurkic is going to see more minutes. Personally, if he was seeing more ownership or if he was going to be a core play for me tonight, I'll be a bit more nervous about it. I would consider capping him because those are always situations I don't ever feel overly confident in. But in this case, I'm just going to trust the DS with it, put a like, and roll with it. And so he is showing up in, 29% of my lines. And so that's 4% leverage over the field. I'll live with that. I'm comfortable with that. The sim model like Nurkic too, so he's really the only Hornet player I'm looking at. You can make a case for Diabot, but I think there's better value on the slate. All right, let's see. What are y'all saying? Cujo, good to see you. Rodney, what's up? One Pride said, welcome back, part-timer. Tell Geeky needs to pay you more so you can dump the office gig. If only. One Pride. We can dream. Nurkic is very risky. Agreed. I don't disagree. So slightly over the field on him. Nothing too crazy. Next up, we have the Grizzlies going up against the Dallas Mavericks. For the Mavs, hard to like these guys. JJJ's out, but they still have guys who can play and guys who will see plenty of minutes. I understand the ownership on Ja Morant, but I'm not looking at going there tonight. Desmond Bane, 6% ownership. I can kind of get that. And what I mean by that is we have a nice high total. This is the highest total game on the slate. This is usually a spot I would target too if I didn't like other spots more. So that's why I can understand the plays, but for me on this one, I'm just not going to force it here. So the sim model did like Santi Aldama and Zach Edey, And so I put a 3% min on Aldama. He's questionable. There's a chance he doesn't play. So you got to pay attention to that. But assuming he does, I'm going to have a 3% min on him and a 4% min on Zach Edey. Just taking some shots for Edey in particular on some of these value plays that are getting less ownership. That's really my strategy on this slate. I'm eating a lot of the chalk when it comes to value plays because I think they're good, but there's still other strong value on this slate that has a ton of upside. And so my plan with the DS today is really just to kind of mix in a few of those guys to give my lineups the best chance of, taking first. So Edey's a guy I am forcing exposure to, and Aldama. Let's see if any other Memphis players show up by themselves in the DS. And the short answer there is John Morant at 1%. On a slate like this, where I have 3 players that I might be over 90% on, that 1% carries a little bit more weight than it typically does. Because sometimes a 1% player is a throwaway, but when you have 3 players that you have a ton of exposure to, that's how you can win a lineup with just that 1% right there. So don't just erase those guys. Nurkic is very risky. Sup, Army? What's up, William? Good to see you, man. Edey's in a position to crush. Yeah, I like the spot. It's just his minutes are volatile. That's why you always get a little nervous with him, but we've been playing bigs against the Mavs for a while. This is another good spot. It's just, his minutes are a little all over the place. So that's why you don't have like 10, 15%. It's just 4%, a little bit over the field, trying to give me a chance to win. Darius, I love these slates, though. It's value overload, but when you have enough time to kind of like sit on it and do some research and make sure you like it, that's when I'm like, okay, I can come to peace with it. Sick of me, what's up? Yeah, man, 20K, let's get another hidden gem. You won 20K last week, man. That was freaking awesome. Hopefully we can do it again. What's up, Coffee? What's up, man? Good to see you. All right, next up we have the Mavs, a team that I don't love, but they make sense. And so when that happens, I don't really overthink it. I always say, I always trust the DS, I trust the matchups, and I trust the sim model. And so I just kind of follow that trend, and it works out for me more often than it doesn't. So for these guys, Najee Marshall was someone that was standing out for me, potentially in the sim, or I don't really. I think it was, I believe it was a sim model. Let's look. 6K, Najee Marshall, 5.85%. He doesn't stand out too much here. It might have been when I was doing the usage rates from when with the injuries that they have. Let's see. Mavericks, Dallas. Yeah, with PJ, Olivier, Dante Exum's questionable, Kai Jones. Yeah, they just have a lot of guys out. And so Najee Marshall has a huge usage rate here. And at 6K in a pace up spot, high total game, I'm looking for reasons to play guys in this game. So they're cheap, solid value options here. I'm forcing exposure there. That's why I put the 20% min on him. Klay Thompson was a sim model play, 5,500. I never like playing Klay Thompson, but I have a like on him right now, and you see that 6.7% chance of hitting 7.5x. He's 18% owned, so I just put a like on him. Let's see how much he's showing up. 15%. So even with a like, because of some of the other value on this slate, I'm still right around field weight, 3% under the field, which, again, I don't love Klay Thompson, so I'm not going to force more exposure to him, but at least I have some exposure. If he goes off, I'll have some lineups competing. Exum is questionable. Did we get the news on him yet? Let me look and see. I feel like I saw his name come up recently. No, I think I'm just... Okay, yeah, he's available to play. So Exum's another sim model play. Similar strategy here with guys like Kyrie out. His minutes are more secure. And I don't hate the matchup. The ownership is low, so he's just another value option that I just like having a little bit of exposure to. He's another sim model play. You can look at it, 4,700. You look at Exum, 5.2% in the 7X column. Obviously, there's much better value with guys like Wiggins, and we'll talk about some of the other Thunder guys that could be interesting, but I like having him in the mix. With a like, Exum is showing up Not at all. I'm going to put a 6% min on him because I do like his chances of having a little bit of upside. I wouldn't make him a leverage player go over that 6%. I mean, the highest I would go is maybe 10, just because he's not the most consistent player, as a lot of us know. There's a little bit of bias there, clearly. I'm feeling some kind of way. Next up, we have the game of the slate. Appreciate it, Jay. We have the Jazz going up against the Raptors. This isn't really the side of the game or ball where you're really excited about these guys. The Jazz are relatively healthy at this point. We're not getting a lot of value from them on this slate. The Raptors are a pretty soft matchup, but the Jazz aren't standing out in this spot from like a value standpoint or upside perspective. You could consider a guy like Kessler, but like I said earlier, the center position is stacked today, and I don't want to lose my center shares to a guy that I feel like is just in a slightly above average spot where there's some guys I feel like are in great positions. So when we look at exposures, the Jazz are not showing up for me at all, and I'm not going to force exposure to them. All right. Next up, we have the Raptors against the Jazz. First of all, before we even had all of this news, I already knew I liked Scotty Barnes. That's why I had him on the thumbnail at like 8 o'clock this morning. But as we got more news and more injury news, and we started to realize that the Raptors are going to be without RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Grady Dick, Jonathan Magbo, Agbaji, Chris Boucher is doubtful. These guys barely have anybody playing today. And so we're playing a lot of really crappy players who have opportunity. This is a situation that some DFS players get nervous about when we have a lot of starters out for a team and we have a lot of unknowns getting opportunities. But for me, I've always loved these spots. Yeah, sometimes these guys will burn you, but when you have these kind of opportunities, I like to go overboard on them because that's worked out for me more times than it hasn't. And it allows me to get different in other places that I'm a little bit less certain about. So I love the Raptors chalk today because it even helps too, because the Jazz are such a god-awful defense that a guy like Scotty Barnes at 7,900 is way too cheap. He has been a little iffy this season, but he has come through in soft matchups at times this season. So that makes me feel a little bit better about having 91% of them, which is significantly over the field, and I'm okay with that. Outside of that, I have a like on Jacoby Walter. This is more of a sim model play. Orlando Robinson's the same thing, more of a sim model play. Emmanuel Quickly at 6,600 just is a really good 60 like mid-range option with a guy who should see 30 plus minutes in a soft matchup. So you're going to get a shit ton of those guys. And those are the guys that I feel, it doesn't really matter if I feel better or worse about them, but or a solid foundation for me on this slate. And I'm looking to make sure all those guys are showing up in my lines. Emmanuel Quickly right now, I'm right at 39% exposure to. I was tempted to adjust it, but it forced in James Harden, who I also like on this slate. So for now, I'm going to hold Quickly where he is. But if he falls below 40%, I will just go ahead and put like a 50% min on him to make sure he doesn't fall anymore. And then outside of that, that's where I'm looking to just kind of get a little weird with some of these guys who are going to see minutes tonight and have an opportunity to be successful. A lot of this is based off of like usage rates and just guys who have shown a little bit of upside before in the past, and also a few sim model plays. Guys like Jamal Sheed seeing 22 plus minutes. I get a little nervous because Barnes can play the one when he wants to, and he will play the one tonight at some points. But I still like having a 5% min on Sheed just in case he sees a little bit more run or is a little bit extra productive today. He's just someone I want some exposure to because he's getting ignored. There's obvious value of Walter. We've seen him have upside before. Robinson, we've seen him have upside before. But some of these guys like Sheed and Roden and Battle are the more unknowns. And if this game blows out and or if minute rotations end up being just a little bit different than we expect it to be, I want exposure to these guys of all the guys that are out. So 5% min on Sheed for me, 3% min on Roden, and I'm gonna Battle starting to see a little bit more ownership than he was this morning, or not this morning, but like a few hours ago. So I'm gonna put a 7% min on him again, because these are just the guys I want to have a little bit of exposure to get different, and then 20% min on Lawson because he just wasn't showing up enough for me. And then the Walter, Robinson, Quickly, Barnes are all the guys I want to be over the field on. Let's double check that that's the case. Yeah, Robinson at 53%, we're more than double the field. Lawson at 26%, more than close to double the field. And then Walter, we're a little under on at 17%. So I'm going to boost that to 30. Because again, I really do want to solidify those 4, and then everything else just kind of goes around that. So the Raptors really are a team that I want to build around today. The alternative to that strategy is you can completely fade them as a way to get different. If you think the chalk's going to fail tonight, that's not wrong either. It's just different. And then you can also play it safe and just, play it the way you get it, which is fine too. So we'll do one more run at the end to kind of make sure we're seeing everything the way I want it to be. But for now, I like the changes we made. Let's see. Is that making sense? Coffee said Robinson or Nurkic. Let's see. So if we look at Robinson, a little laggy. We look at Robinson. We look at the Hornets. Have Nurkic at 3,700. Robinson at 3,500. Robinson has a higher minutes floor, which I like, but Nurkic is a little bit more productive. Their projections are almost identical. So it really is more of a coin flip. I would lean towards Nurkic at the end of the day if it's just like 1-for-1, but I'll have plenty of lines with both. How much Toronto is too much Toronto? That's always a question we get a lot of. I don't make a rule when there's a team I really like. I have some lines with 5 Raptors, some with 4, some with 3, some with 2. When I was looking earlier, pretty much all of my lines had at least 1, but I didn't make a rule, and I'm not going to be honest. I think I've seen so many situations where people rule themselves out of wins. I think one of my first really big takedowns was one with 4 to 5 Miami players, and because some people had a rule of 3, they didn't win. So you can do the opposite too. Sometimes because you have that rule, you have a better chance of winning than me. But yeah, that's just the way I'm going to play it. Chet is out. Dang it. One of my sneaky plays is no longer going to be sneaky. Damn. That hurts. But still, that's good, I guess. We'll see. Next up, we have the Timberwolves going up against the Miami Heat. This is one of the worst games on the slate. Sim Model had a little bit of interest in Anthony Edwards. Let's look a little bit closer at it. Anthony Edwards at 9,400. We look at the 6.5 X column. For studs, this is a bit more relevant. God, my voice is going away. It's been a long week, y'all. Hopefully we'll make it through. But you see the 6.5X column on Harden. I like him more than Edwards, and so that's why I chose Harden. I also like the matchup slightly better for Harden than Edwards, but Edwards is a viable tournament play here. He's getting no ownership. I have a like on him just to kind of see if the DS would be interested. Last time I checked, he was only showing up in one lineup with that like, but now he's not showing up at all. And I don't like the matchup enough to force it. I don't like the game environment enough to force it. So I'm just going to keep the like. Maybe he'll show up in 1% of my lines because he was doing that earlier, but I can't find a good reason to do that. Next up, we have the Miami Heat, who are going into this brutal matchup against the Timberwolves. Tyler Hero is questionable, so that could make things a little bit more interesting here in a gross way. Khalil Ware's out. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. Some of the things that are important here, Terry Rozier would probably start if Hero gets ruled out. So that would make Rozier slightly more viable. Let me see. How much is he? 4,900. I think we have, actually, let me double check. 4,300 at guard, right? 1 or 2. Boom. Okay, guard. We go look at the value. Yeah. I think we have better value than Rozier. He's worth being in the conversation, I guess, if Hero gets ruled out, but just given the matchup and price tag, I think it's probably still a safe pass, even if Hero does get ruled out. If it's Hero and Wiggins, then maybe it's worth more of a conversation and Burks, but for me, I don't plan on going there right now. All right, next up we have the Portland Trailblazers going up against the Thunder. For Portland tonight, they do have a few pieces of injury news we should talk about. Grant's questionable, Avdia's questionable. If these guys end up missing tonight, it could mean we have more like mid-range options, like guys like Sharp, Murray would be a bit more viable. If Avdia's ruled out, Murray definitely becomes a better play. Walker sees an increase in usage as well. Minutes become a little bit more secure, but this is another spot too where I just think we already have better value than the guys playing, even if we do get some injury news here. So I'm not too concerned about it, but it's still worth noting just in case you do want to make some adjustments. The OKC side is a lot more interesting. We know SGA is already out. We just got the news that Chet's out. That means Kenrich Williams should start for him here. You're already seeing that. He's already projecting decently well. Looks like the DS might have already updated, which is sweet. Jalen Williams is out. A lot of these guys have been out for a good bit. Thunder are not healthy. I like Jalen Williams tonight. He's been in... Let me look a little bit closer at this before I say it. Don't want to embarrass myself there. He's been a little iffy. We haven't seen too much upside from him since earlier in February, but the minutes are trending in the right direction. He saw 19 minutes against Memphis. This is a really soft matchup for him. With Chet getting ruled out, it only makes me like Jalen Williams more. I have a 20% min on him and a like. Simauto liked him too. I really like this spot. I can't say that enough. We'll rerun with the Chet news and see if he'll increase a bit, but he's a player I do want a lot of. And so I have a 20% min, really just solidifying how much of him I get. And then a lot of really good value here. Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins. These are two players who you'll see in a lot of my lines. Aaron Wiggins is showing up a lot, 89%. Whereas Isaiah Joe is showing up right around field weight, 25%. He's someone that we have some trust issues with. He doesn't always have the most upside, but especially with Chet now being ruled out, the usage rates should balance out a bit where he's still a very viable option. He's not a core player or anything like that. His usage rates are just too volatile for you to trust him too much, but he's a very, very solid 4K player who gives us plenty of upside for his price. Let's see. And then Caruso is a player that the sim model liked. I like him a lot too at 4,400. Good matchup. Like a lot of these guys, minutes are a little hit or miss, but in a spot like this where they're missing so many guys, I feel a little bit better about Caruso tonight. And again, in a soft matchup, I like attacking these spots. I'm going to put a 9% min on him. Again, just to kind of make sure he continues to show up the way I want him to. And then let's see. Okay, so we have Aaron Wiggins showing up the way I like it. Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams. I might have to force more exposure here because I'm not seeing these guys as much as I would like. But let me rerun first. That could be part of the problem. I saw Chet in one of those lines. Heroes on track. Wiggins is out. Okay, appreciate that, DJ. I don't think I'm looking at the Miami tonight, especially if Heroes on track to play. That's the only way it would have got a little interesting, but I don't like it. Ooh, okay, we're doing pretty good on time. I thought we would be a little bit tighter. Okay, 77 lines. We can keep moving, and then we'll come back and look at exposures. The Suns were a little bit viable before we got the news that Bradley Beal was going to play. Then it was pretty easy to avoid looking at them. If Kevin Durant was a little bit lower owned, I would have taken a shot on him. I still think KD's viable. We've seen him have upside in games when Bradley Beal is playing. Devin Booker typically struggles a bit more when Beal plays, so I'm not as excited about him. This is the second highest total game on the slate, so I don't think you're wrong forcing in KD. when I did my run last time around, he was showing up in 1% of my lines, kind of like Ja Morant, kind of like Kawhi. These are guys that I'm just not going to force exposure to, even though I understand the plays. I'm kind of just like staying a little bit more siloed today with just my plan. Outside of that, what's up, Dixon? He said, just know that even though you don't see me very active today, I've been here in mind, body, and spirit. Appreciate it, Dixon. Hope you're doing all right, man. Hope everyone is. All right, so the Nuggets side is more interesting for a few reasons. One, just because Nikola Jokic is on the team. He's always super viable. The other side, because I just like picking on the Suns more often than not, to be honest. Let's see. From an injury news standpoint, I know we have Jokic listed as questionable. That's something we'll have to keep a close eye out for, especially with how chalky he is. Aaron Gordon is also questionable. We know that usually means like you see Najee or sometimes even Westbrook slide up a little bit more. For now, though, assuming these guys are playing, Nikola Jokic is one of the better pay-up options on the slate, at least from a floor standpoint. He gives you some of the most consistent upside. Jamal Murray is someone that I like in this spot. I like playing Jamal Murray in soft matchups, kind of like Fox and some other guard options. I just like playing them when they're going up against teams that give up a lot of points to guards, and the Suns are one of those teams where you pretty consistently see guards having big games against them. It doesn't mean for sure Jamal Murray is going to go off tonight, but I understand the 12% ownership, and so I wanted to at least match the field there, so I had a fighting chance if he goes off tonight. Especially if Jokic gets ruled out, then he becomes a much better play. But that's about it. I just put a 13% min on Murray, and then Jokic should show up for you by himself. He's showing up in about 42% of my lines right now, so I'm over the field there, which is sweet. All right. Next two games, we have the Spurs going up against the Kings. This Spurs game, we have De'Aaron Fox going back to Sacramento. There's a revenge narrative here, but I don't love the spot. It's weird. Like I'm usually pretty consistent, like going after these revenge narratives, but seeing Fox at 12% ownership, 8,400, some of the other value we have, I'm already taking shots on guys like Jamal Murray, and I like James Harden a lot on this slate. I couldn't find a great reason to play Fox here, so I didn't force it, and he's not showing up. The revenge narrative's there. You can take your shot on that if you want to. I don't think it's dumb. I just couldn't do it for myself on this slate. Outside of that, there are two guys that the sim model like. Devin Vassell is one of them. He just had that crazy 70-point game. Kind of believe that was a fluke to some extent. I have a 1% min on him because I don't like him that much on this slate. I like Castle a bit more. I don't think Castle is a must play because of some of the value we have. I have a 3% min on him just because I do like the matchup. I do like that the sim model liked him. And so that's kind of just me kind of going through the usual process I do. But I do think there's better plays than both of these guys. I just wanted to have a little bit of exposure just in case. The Kings side of things is a lot more interesting. Primarily because they are without Sabonis and Monk. Two high usage guys for them. Ellis has been starting. He should continue to start. He's one of those value guard plays on this slate that have a pretty solid floor that you want exposure to. Outside of that, the sim model liked Joe Val. It liked DeMar DeRozan. It liked Zach LaVine. So I have a like on all three of them. To be honest, I will probably take the like off of these guys just because of how much they're showing up. I don't feel like I need quite that much of them. DeMar DeRozan had a great game last time out. He played plenty of minutes. Without Sabonis, it looks like they're really going to lean on him to really give them that production. So I like him tonight. I don't think I need the like, though, just because of how much he's already showing up. Joe Val is showing up in 37% of my lines. You all know I have trust issues with Joe Val. Matchup's not brutal going up against the Spurs, but I don't need a like on a guy I don't trust. And then who else is there? Zach LaVine, I do like. He's not showing up a lot in my lines, even with a like. So I'm going to put an 18% min on him and call that a day because I do want exposure to the Kings. Even though I'm taking those likes off, I just didn't need to be so over the field on those guys, in my opinion. Now, if the DS does that naturally, I'm fine with it. I just didn't want to tell it to do something that I wasn't overly passionate about. Uh-oh, we're getting news. William, thank you, man. Gobert is out. Rudy is out. Denny is out. All right, we'll go look at it. With Rudy out, we might have to now look at some of these Timberwolves. Denny getting ruled out doesn't really change much for me. Again, maybe a little bit biased because I freaking hate Portland, but I think they're priced appropriately even with the injury news. Okay, so now DeMar DeRozan's at 77%. That's a little bit more appropriate than 95. Keon Ellis is showing up at 25. That's fine. Zach LaVine's showing up around 20%, slightly over the field. I like that. Joe Val disappeared without the like. I don't trust the guy, but I don't hate him. I'm going to put a 25% min. I like having a little bit of leverage on these guys. I just didn't need like 30, 35% of Joe Val tonight. Damn. Make small changes, man. Things change pretty aggressively. That's why I like the DS, though, because it really just gives you a lot of flexibility to either just use it blindly or you can make adjustments the way you want to. And that's the nice thing about having flexibility. So yeah, that is that game. One more game. But if you are interested in having access to the Domination Station, feel free to click the link in the description. Promo code BDUB, BDUBB, for a 10% discount there. He is not with me today. He's going through some stuff, but hopefully you're good out there, BDUB, and look forward to having you back when you're ready. We'll see you soon. All right, so now we have the Knicks going up against the Clippers. Another low total game, kind of gross, but what makes this game interesting is the injury news. We have Brunson out, or he's doubtful. He's doubtful, which basically means he's out. And thankfully, the Domination Station and Uppers have already updated this information, basically making it like Brunson's out. And you see Cameron Payne, Miles McBride are two really solid sources of value on this slate. McBride is the one you want to prioritize because he should, Payne or McBride could start here. So you do want to pay attention to that, but I trust McBride's minutes a bit more. He usually is the guy who sees more minutes in this spot. And then you see Cameron Payne go from like seeing 5 to 15 minutes to pretty consistently seeing 20. So even at 3,100, him seeing 20 minutes makes him a viable play. Also, he has a really nice usage rate. So even if he doesn't see quite as much run, still a solid play. So both of these are guys I want to see show up in my lines. And then Karl Anthony Towns sees a 7% increase in usage with Brunson out. He's 5% owned. And the matchup against the Clippers is a little scary. I get it. Like, you don't love playing guys against the Clippers. They're a really good defensive team. But I'm not scared. Karl Anthony Towns at 9,900 with no other stud is too cheap. And so that's a play I want to be all over. Right now I have a 10% min on him, but I'm actually going to increase it to like 15, 20%, assuming more people kind of get on board with the play. I want to be over the field on him. I could even be talked into doing 20%, but like I said, there's a lot of really good center plays, so I'm not going to go too crazy there. I'm just going to stick with 15%. And then I have a 15% min on McBride because he wasn't showing up enough for me earlier. And then Cameron Payne shows up around 13%. I'm willing to put a 20% min on him, just kind of make sure he shows up more. And I'll do a 25% min on McBride, just kind of force that difference I was talking about earlier. And then you can consider taking shots on OG and Bridges or Hart in these spots. They're all viable. They see an increase in usage, but it's just not as comparable to a guy like Cat. And also the matchup is tough. And it felt like more of a dart throw for me. If one of them started to show up a little bit more naturally, I might be a little bit more open to it, but they're not, so I'm not going to force it. The Clippers side of things is interesting too. We have Powell out. Let's see, who else are they missing? Los Angeles Clippers. Ben Simmons is out, which surprisingly does matter a little bit. But from a DFS perspective, I think you don't have to play these guys because the Knicks are a good defense. Even without Brunson, they're still going to be a good defense. Slightly worse, especially at the guard spot, which is why I have an interest in prioritizing Harden over Leonard. Leonard is a little bit cheaper, which means he doesn't have to do as much to kind of get you there to win a tournament. But when Powell's out, usually it's Harden who's really taking on more of the offensive lead. And Kawhi is just kind of there doing his mid-range thing. It's just a little bit less explosive. So I like taking the shot on Harden here. I have a 20% min on him. And let's see, I want to make him like a real leverage play. So if he's going to be 13% owned, I want to be double that. So I'm going to be like 25, 26. Looks like Aldama's available to play. Contra's available to play. So I'll keep that Aldama like on too, just in case he shows up a little bit more. Yeah, that 3% min on Aldama, we get to keep that just in case. So yeah, I like James Harden here. The rest of these guys is hard to look at. Knicks are a really good defense. They play their starters a shit ton of minutes. Don't get overly excited about those spots. Kawhi is going to see OG a lot tonight. Don't love that for him. Whereas Harden gets to see Cameron Payne and McBride. I like that a lot more for him. So that was kind of my main thought process there. So let's do a run and just make sure we're seeing everything the way we want to. Abort. Okay, refresh. All right, everything should be updated now. Let's see what we get. Oh, appreciate you, Darius, man. Hope you're doing all right. All right, let's see. Nikola Jokic. Need to make sure he's showing up still. Not playing LaMelo, not playing Bam. KD, Hero. Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone I'm overlooking. I'm playing everyone I want to play at least. Now, will the exposures be the way we want them to go? Khalil. Okay, Kawhi. I was like, who are you talking about, Don Juan? Yeah, Kawhi could definitely go off. I mean, it really is a bit of a dart throw for me when Powell's out. It's almost always Kawhi or Harden. Because of the way this slate shapes up, you don't have to play either, but I'm still going to take a shot on one or the other. You could take a shot on both, but there's other guys I like a bit more, so I don't want to clunky it up too much. So Aaron Wiggins is in pretty much all of my lines. I'll live with that. All right, so this is one example. So I like Jalen Williams. He's showing up a lot, and I don't hate that, but I'm curious to see how much of the heavy lifting that like is doing. So I'm going to take the like off of him. I'm going to increase this 20% min to 26% because it went up with Chet getting ruled out. And then we'll see what else we're working with here. Also, I think there's... Let me look a little bit closer at some of these Thunder players too. There might be some guys I need to force exposure to here. Their starting lineup is really going to impact a lot of what we do. So I might just wait and see exactly who they start. We have projected to start, though, Alex Caruso, which is why I forced exposure to him. Isaiah Joe. Let me see with Chet out. Who should... Isn't that Kenrich? Yeah, so we're expecting Kenrich to start. I want some exposure to him, too, at 3,400. I need to have him in the mix, so I'll put a 15% min on him. Joe was showing up by himself. Yep, I'm still over the field on him. Jalen, Caruso. Yeah, okay, good. All that makes sense. Okay. Then I'll rerun and make sure they're all showing up the way I need them to. David said, do you like Hunter versus the Hornets, DK, GPP? Let's see. I don't think so, but I'll look a little bit closer at it. Yeah, he's not projecting very well, but let me look at some recent production and see if I agree with it. Hunter. Okay. Minutes are a little volatile. Did well against Portland. Well against Sacramento. Soft matchup. He could have 40-point upside. He's priced at 5,700 though. So even with that, with some of the value we have on the slate, I don't love it. Yeah, I'm not really looking at Hunter today, David, to be honest. Okay, let's see here. So now we have Aaron Wiggins still in pretty much every line. Scotty Barnes is showing up a lot of Isaiah Joe, a lot of DeMar DeRozan, a lot of Jokic, Harden. Okay, Jalen Williams went back to 49%. We're still significantly over the field because I do like him a lot, but he's not in 80% of my lines. Like, that was a little bit much. And then Kenrich, we have that min on, so that's why he's showing up the way I want him to, right at 16%. Caruso still at 9. Dieng showing up a little bit. Oh, should we be looking at Dieng? $24 minutes. Decent points per minute player. Projecting for 21 points. There's a lot of value, so I can understand why the DS might not be getting to him as much. I'm going to look a little bit closer at him, though, to see if I should force some exposure here. Oh, crap. We're getting close to lock. That's the con about starting so late is you start pushing against the clock. Let's see. Who am I looking at? Ding. Dang. He did have a 40-point game against Milwaukee when he had 30 minutes the other time, earlier in February on the 3rd. Haven't really seen him play too much since then. Earlier this season, when he saw 20 minutes, he only had like 16 fantasy points, so it's not like he's always a high points per minute player. Usage is usually somewhere in like the usage rates range a lot. But he's usually in like the lower like 18 to 23 range on average. Yeah, not a guy I'm going to force exposure to, but I'll let the DS put him in a couple lines. He's probably like the 5th best option if I had to think about it. Like, I think Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Jalen Williams, Kenrich Williams are all better plays. Alex Caruso is probably me getting a little cute. At 4,400, there probably are better plays. I'm going to keep the like on him. The minutes have just been a concern for him. I'll keep the like because the Simano liked him. Let's look at that a little bit closer. 4,400. Caruso. 8.9, 1.9. You just don't see a lot of players in this price range have any chance of hitting 8x. So I still like having exposure to him. But his ownership's creeping up so much, it's getting hard to kind of stomach it. Yeah, I'm going to take the min off and keep the like and try and trust the DS on that one. Okay, you have 5,800 left for the forward spot. Let's see. I mean, I would look at Klay Thompson over Hunter. I do like him more. Max Christie's fine. I don't love it, but it's fine. I'm sure you already have Aaron Wiggins in there. And then Dante Exum is very viable as well. I probably wouldn't go much lower than that. Don Juan said, my worry about the first game is a blowout and starters sit. Just think Mobley smash. Yeah, that is a great scenario on how this slate goes bad really fast. Is if this game stays a little bit closer than we think and the Cavs go off at low ownership. Very, very possible. The Hornets have been pretty solid against guards this season, so I'm not quite as worried about Mitchell and Garland. Hopefully I don't bite those words. But Mobley and Allen are the two that I would be a bit more interested in. But the ownership on them at 10% is what made me kind of get off of it. I would prefer Mobley if he was like 4 or 5% owned, then I'm getting 10, 15% for leverage. But 10%, I can't really get leverage on that when there's other center plays I do just like more. So not a bad play or call, but I just couldn't get it to make sense for me on this slate. It's one of those spots where if it just burns me, it burns me. But yeah, that would be a buzzkill of a way to end. Okay, I'll do one more run before we wrap things up here. But appreciate you all, guys, for sticking it out with me. Hopefully you all do well tonight. Hopefully we can celebrate. And Next week's going to be crazy for me. I don't think I'll be around Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I'm going to shoot for next Thursday, and then Friday will be a lock for sure. And then after next week, hopefully, if all things go as according to plan, I should be able to get pretty consistent with things again, back to almost every day, especially going into the playoffs. So good times are coming. We just got to persevere through this rocky wave for a little bit. So appreciate the support, everyone. Hope you all do well. Feel free to reach out if y'all have any questions, but I'll see y'all later. Peace out, y'all.
Sheesh.